to belong to Sun is the red granite colossus of first king of the 12th dynasty built a temple here, as there are many objects that reflect the style of that dynasty, as well as a red granite colossus said to.
So this is part, I think, 3 of my little series, just getting this vase fixed up, ready to print. So I hope you have seen the others, but if you haven't, I can understand you not going back and watching them because they're long. So pick it up from here if you want. So I'll just let you know up front that the hole on the interior of this is no longer accurate, as I've made it myself because there was some missing bits. So don't measure that if you're trying to do any kind of measurements off your 3D printed vase. Likewise, the interior surface and the exterior surface are not accurate to each other, although the exterior is exactly how I received it from Ben's website. So the interior surface is actually a copy of the exterior surface. So that you know, and it's been as best as possible. The bottom portion of it is from the original interior, and the inside of the top of the lip here and the top rim is all part of the original, but as you'll see in video number 1, I actually replaced the middle section with a copy of this because I didn't have a good middle section, so you can see that in the earlier videos. All you're really going to get to see in this one is me trying to figure out what the hell's wrong with this bottom bit here and fix it up. So yeah, let's get into that. What I might do, try and zoom inside it. Sometimes you can get yourself, sort of get yourself sideways up to something and then kind of drag yourself in. There we go. I see, so there's some bits here. That's a bit sus. What are you? Alright, so not allowing back faces, so should in theory only be able to select front faces, and since we're on the inside, in theory, hopefully we don't have too many bits like that. Where was that one? There. There's a few of these weird little creases. What I might do is I might just grab the sculpt tool, make it a bit smaller, and see if we can't just sculpt those out. Okay, I'm going to press play again.
Be of him at Tanis. This statue was, perhaps predictably, later reclaimed by Merenptah of the 19th dynasty by carving his own name onto it. When writing about this statue, as well as the red granite columns found at Tanis, pt3 said, quote, "The first piece of work as yet known to belong to Sun is the red granite colossus of Amenemhat I, the first king of the 12th dynasty. The greater part of the lower inscription has been hammered out by Merenptah I in order to substitute a barren repetition of his own name in the rudest style, only the small strip of old titles being left in the middle. It seems certain that Amenemhat I built a temple here, as his statue was doubtless placed in some large building, and there are many fragments of columns of red granite which appear to belong to him. It is impossible to assign them to the Ramesside or any late period." End quote. The signs of deep antiquity at Tanis continue back even further. pt3 also found evidence for buildings that may have occurred in the Old Kingdom. In particular, a number of blocks and inscriptions that seem to trace back to the well-known Pepi of the 6th dynasty. Although, given the many renovations and layers of subsequent building, he does admit that this is far from a certainty, and that it's possible that these granite blocks were imported from older sites and reused in later times by Ramesses. In my opinion, the origins of Tanis likely stretch far further back in time, even to pre-cataclysmic times, but it will be almost impossible to ever really know for sure when this place was originally built. I think that Tanis, and perhaps more than any other site, has been repeatedly renovated, reclaimed and reused, which has muddied up the waters of its origin. There is likely much more yet to find here. In fact, recent ground-penetrating radar scans have revealed further construction in deeper layers at the site, and even though this exploration is happening very slowly, new discoveries are still being made in this area. Today, the ruins of these ancient and priceless monuments are left resting in the sand, as a reminder and distant echo of the glory and achievement of the mighty structures that once stood here, rivaling any of the far more famous sites of ancient Egypt. Although almost nobody knows it, Tanis is one of the most important and relevant historical sites that connects our civilization to the lost times of the ancients. Much like the lost labyrinth at Hawara, its legacy deserves better of us, and rather than being dismissed as a footnote in the achievements of a hugely ambitious and egotistical ancient king, Tanis should be celebrated and investigated as one of the cradles of civilization, and as a remnant of a long-forgotten and lost era of human
Good
achievement.
enough for me. So another thing to do, we won't be able to quite call accurate is the overall height, since we've created the bottom ourselves. Or I have created the bottom myself. Jeez, I still reckon I can see just the shine. There's something that's like
Hey everyone,
there
I hope you
is
found that to be interesting.
a raised
It's a real
bit
cracker
there
of a
where that was
statue
machined
at
out as a
Tanis, isn't it?
separate
It must have been
process.
just a gigantic piece of work
Very
back
well.
in the day when it was intact. Touch wood. I really hope to get back to Tanis
Like I'm thinking if
this
this
year
was
and
on a
take another look
5-axis
at it.
mill of
I'm
some
very
sort.
much
I don't
looking
really,
forward
I've
to
never
getting
really
back to
used a
Egypt,
mill,
pretty
so.
soon.
But I know
I had
that they
cut quite a bit of text out of this episode. I'm going to move.
Sorry, Benny. Just mute you for a sec there. Just looking at this. And imagine this is rotating. I'll get him sideways and get him rotating. Which way do you rotate, you mongrel? Yeah, so it'll be rotating like that. They're milling. It's obviously straighter than that when it's rotating, but yeah. So they're milling that out. They do, turning that off rather with the lathe tool. They turn around that, which would leave a big rim around there. They come down. They finish that, and then, and perhaps even beforehand, maybe they actually mill this groove out first. Maybe they do that. Maybe they go with some kind of something that can follow an arc that can scoot back and forth and just slowly turn that while there's a tool going following that curve. And then this is turning, then the tool stops, lets it rotate past there, then obviously still following that curve if you're looking at it from the side. So that's possibly it, and then maybe they've turned it afterwards, maybe they've cleared that out first, so then when they've turned it in and blended it in. Maybe, who knows, because they obviously would have had to chunk that out as well. So that could have all been part of that same process as they were doing that. They've just lifted it higher when they've chunked that out, gone around, so then that would have all been blended up to there, and then why not turn it if you've got it on a rotating tool anyway? You just got to turn this chung tool 90 degrees to where it was, and then spin that around. So it could have all been done even with the same tool tip, just at different angles. And maybe that's why there is quite, if anything, it's only very minimal what we can see here. I am convinced I can see something, but I was tried to highlight it with a tool before, and it really didn't want to highlight it. But we can put some different shaders on and see if the different surface finishes help to make anything stand out. Look, if this scan is accurate, it is showing something, I think. And I don't really think this, you sort of look everywhere else, all down here, there's no real shine. The shine is very even. There's speckles, but that shine is very even there. It doesn't, that all looks like it would have been turned on a lathe. But this bit here, I don't know, I reckon I can see where they must have had some kind of a milling tool chung in it, or they've done a fucking spectacular job of doing that by hand. Like, maybe it is possible with the fact that they've got this and this is a guy. Like, if I was to do this by hand, and I've worked on gel coat before, where you're trying to patch a piece of gel coat, which is like the thin paint-like substance on the outside of a boat, which is actually painted on the inside of the mould first before the fiberglass is laid up, and then if it ever gets damaged as part of the boat, you've got to try and repair it. So you mix up a very similar compound to it, and then paint it on, and then you've got to feather that back in with sandpaper, without sort of ruining the paint around it. So having worked with something somewhat as fine as this, where you're aiming to blend in a patch perfectly, that without painting the surface afterwards, because you can't then just go and paint that patch. It's kind of like filling the hole with paint and then sanding it back off flat to the other paint and not having any excess paint sprayed around the place, if that makes sense. So I'm thinking, if I was to approach this and I had turned everything off and I had to somehow chisel this out by hand, let's just say that the roughing out process was done. Once that was chipped away, and probably using some kind of guides and whatnot, and templates and shields and shit, and possibly a blade that's like you could flex a blade to the shape of this other thing. You could mask that up with something. So say that you've done it, you'd mask that up with some good old masking tape, or paint a substance on it that protects it from scraping, and then you could use that basically as a tool guide to scrape something similar to like just a hacksaw blade. Flex that blade and drag it around that, because I've also got experience carving stone. I don't know if I mentioned this before or not, but I have carved stone. I'm a sculptor, fine artist by trade. So I've done lithography, which involves grinding a stone flat with a round disc and some grit paper, fine grit powder, and keeping that moving evenly over the stone. So I know a bit about grinding stone flat. I know a little bit about, like I said before, with the gel coat repairs, sort of finishing something to a perfect repair, and using essentially paint to guide my piece of sandpaper. So having to be so careful that I didn't wear through that paint. So you'd always mask it off and basically work that down to the point where it was only the thickness of a piece of masking tape that you had to freeball, and then literally freeballing it and being very careful not to scrape the paint off or the gel coat around it back beyond where you'd notice it. So I think that it is fucking difficult to do that with that much material as well as it's been done. But I do think I can see some evidence there. Now that same evidence of what's possibly a little bit of hand work, maybe, like, I don't want to say that it is, but maybe it's just during the polishing process. So let's just say that they have turned this part on a lathe and they've milled this bit out and it's slightly different, like it's got different scratch marks in it, and they've had to, to get those tool marks out, they've had to cut deep into the stone, relatively deep for a polishing job. When I say deep, I mean from a polishing point of view, not from a carving point of view. To get those scratch marks out, you'd have to sort of potentially go with a fair grit. And again, you'd probably use like a tool, like a spongy stick with your sandpaper wrapped around it that you can curve to that and sort of, move it in a very rhythmic stroke that, but still it's the accuracy that they're talking about with the mirroring on one side to the other from here to here. Jesus Christ, like that bit's got to have been 99.9% machined and just buffed. Whereas this bit here, maybe the accuracy isn't that good there. Maybe it's hard to measure that bit's accuracy. And I imagine when they had it on that little turntable, though, they can touch it here. They could home it off itself over here. It was like as it was a zero. So when this, they probe it here, boink, and then they spin it around, and then they probe it again, boink, and it's saying it hasn't moved, as opposed to it's deviated point this of a millimeter or that or whatever. So, I mean, that's fucking pretty good to be able to even hand polish something to the point where it says it's at zero. Is pretty spectacular. There is that slight, and again, it's pretty unfair to really judge this, but I mean that is a pretty fine mesh. And that was a pretty good scanner that they had from what I understand. And I do reckon there's a faint line. I hope you can see that. Probably should have the original video in the background of this. Pretty sure we got through both of them now in the other episodes, so. I might make one more video after this where I do a summary and explain what's in each video, but that's if I can be bothered. Don't count on it. Don't hold your breath. Anyway, yeah, so I've left all the chips and bumps and warts. All I've really done is patch up the inside of it and make it so that it's approximately what I think it was like, which is probably very inaccurate. That is the original bottom, which is the original spacing from what was the bottom, not counting that yellow beige bit from there down is kind of a bit whack life. So we've probably added a millimetre or two to the bottom of the vase there. But other than that, and these holes here, that is accurate to how I received the STL file. Now the only thing that I noticed was that this came out mega tiny, and I should probably scale it to the correct size. My background music's too loud. Oh, is it? I can see the comments now. I hope you're still there. Let me know if you're still there. I'm not in YouTube itself, but I can see the comments in OBS. So let me know if you're there. And you reckon the background's too loud? Like you mean when I play the video?
Move that into a part 3 of my evidence for ancient advanced technology, and that'll be an episode that focuses on construction methodologies, and in particular how statues and objects like this were potentially moved around. Things like the stone of the pregnant woman at Baalbek, the trilithon, the unfinished obelisk. I really think it's these extreme cases that we have to explain.
Let me know if you're still there, and I'll tweak the volume.
If we are presuming that some primitive ancient civilization moved these around without the aid of forms of advanced technology. And I don't think we've adequately done that to this point. There's not really a lot of point in arguing about blocks that are 2 ton or 10 ton or 20 ton even in size. There's plenty of evidence that suggests that ancient civilizations were capable of moving those around, but it's rather these extreme cases that we need to account for. If we're going to say that, well, this was all done by some primitive civilization using primitive methods, and I'm quite skeptical that that's the case. I hope everyone out there is doing well and surviving in these strange times that we're all living through. This channel's approaching 100,000 subscribers at this point. I'm really grateful for all of the support that everybody's shown me. Thank you to everybody that subscribes to the channel and watches the content. I do want to say just a huge thank you in particular to the people that support the channel through the value for value model. There's a lot, if you're interested.
Just turn that sound off for a bit, but do go and support his Patreons and whatnot. Yeah, so anyway, yeah, I do think that we can see some slight imperfections on that section there. So, I mean, I'll go away ads. Alrighty, okay, we'll go out of YouTube. Hey there. Hey Dalek man, how you doing? Thanks for joining. Yeah, hopefully this video hasn't been too boring. I've just been fixing up this vase. This is just a passion project, this one. I'm just going to just take that away and go back to that view. Oh, that's right. It's got that weird texture on it. Yeah, so yeah, hopefully that's been educational, and yeah, basically just fixed up a vase that's a scan of an ancient Egyptian artifact. Just looking at how they must have made it in the first place. This side seems a bit smoother than that one. That's interesting. This red's not showing it off the best. There seems like a ridge there. So there is a few little ridgy looking bits there. That seem to be in line with the rest. And there does seem to be a slight warble to them. Like there's a little warble here. You see that? Try and get that to turn to the right angle. Sort of see just as it rotates from light to shadow, there's sort of like a little lump there. It's very subtle. I mean, it would be interesting to see how accurate this, like, okay, yes, this bit was accurate to that bit, but I wonder, like, you know, how accurate is this weird lumpy bit here to the other side? And, I mean, obviously it's a bit unfair to measure a gouge, but how is that gouge made? But yeah, like this warbliness here, you know, there's a slight warble through there. I wonder if it's accurate on both sides. I wonder if I've munted that at all during my processes. I'm pretty confident that I haven't, but that is possible. Maybe I should bring the original in and compare. But I don't think I've done all of that. Pretty sure the way I took it apart and joined it back together again was along the same exact seam lines as the original bit. If anything, maybe I did do some cuts through some of those bits, but I don't see it. I'm pretty sure they were all natural fault lines that I'd separated it on before when I took it apart. So they went back together exactly the same. But yeah, again, that is definitely my manufacturing on the inside of those handles. And I'm assuming they went right through on the real artifact. I'm not 100% sure. They may have, I didn't look at the video well enough. They may have terminated there and stopped it partway in. But I imagine they probably went right through. Anyway, that's that. That's done. See if the matte finish reveals anything. Yeah, there is. There's a chip out of it. There's a few chips. So I'm not aiming to repair those. I want to keep those as they are. But I mean, down the track I could do one where it's repaired. That'd be interesting. But this one's more just repairing the mesh and getting it ready for printing. Because it was, if you look at the very start of my original video in this series, you'll see that it was heinously bad in Curo when I went to slice it. So I'm actually just going to save this now. And then I'm going to export it as an STL. Still haven't scaled it to the correct scale yet. It's probably a terrible scale. Now hopefully we can open Cura and turn it on, turn Mesh Mixer off. Do, 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 do. It's going to be teensy weensy. I wonder if it is that it needs to be scaled up by 2,420 or whatever it is. I reckon that's probably it. Okay, Google. Okay, Google. What's the scaling factor if something was made in inches and you're converting that same numerical value to millimeters?
According to Magic Bricks, to convert inches to mm, you must multiply the unit by 25.4.
2540. Yeah, I knew it was something like that. Alright, that should be accurate now. That should be actual size. We've got this on. Yep, end of 3. Yep, cool. Yeah, so Dalek Man, yes, the end of 5 plus upgrades, eh? Yeah, I'm funny with upgrades. There's some I do, there's some I don't do. There's a lot I should. Haha, I activated your Google Home. That's hilarious. Okay, Google. Play Electric Callboy Hyper Hyper. I hope that works. That'll be hilarious. Alright, do we need support? I don't know if we need support. Do we? I wasn't planning on using support. I didn't think about it too much, but... Oh man, I could have so much fun with this. Oh. Oh, I should tell it to turn the volume right up as well. Okay, let's have a look at this with no support on, because I reckon it doesn't need it. No support. Definitely drop in and check out the studio sometime. So you know I'm at Wall's End now, not at Morisset anymore. Uh, did you like the hyper hyper? It's one of those you've got to either love it or hate it songs. Yeah, sweet. Oh, good old Jezzo. I often go to the Jezzo on a Thursday night for the burger night. That looks like it's going to print. I don't see any good reason why that needs support. Maybe it'd be nice to have some support inside those holes there, but fuck it. Alright, 116 grams of plastic down the goigler. And I've got PLA loaded up. I wanted to know if you want YouTube Music. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, because it's the Google Home. See, yeah. Mine was on my phone and I would have thought it would have done the same thing, but I guess it was just different. But that's funny. Oh, I also do have YouTube Music, but it seems to have opened it on YouTube itself. Anyway, that's funny. Yeah, it gets things wrong. Have you played with the Chat GPT? That's pretty fun. You get some. I think it's kind of better than the Googs. All right, so that's printing. Happy days. Well, it's about to print. The bed is heating. I'll update everyone on how that prints. And yeah, just sit tight. I'll try and get the files to Ben, and hopefully if he does an updated video he'll put them out, or otherwise he'll just add them to the file package that he advertises on his. This is assuming he even wants to know me and cares. I don't think I've done any harm by fixing the file and putting it back out there to him, so we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I just thought I'd do that because I was going to just print it and make a simple video of me printing it and just flick him a bit of interest. But then when I opened the file up, it had some mesh errors that would make it challenging for a newbie who's only just gotten themselves a 3D printer and gotten sort of into printing, which kind of could cover a lot of people that would watch his channel. Being not a 3D printing channel, I feel as though maybe some of the people in the audience that would be like, oh, I'd like to have a go at that, I have a 3D printer, might have gotten that file and gone, oh, this doesn't look right, because it kind of would have printed it as like a solid block. So as you can see now, I mean, all this stuff here that we can see is just where it would theoretically travel. That's actually not printing that. Whereas before it was all full of just what should have been inside here was actually inside this void, and it kind of didn't know where the real world started and the dark matter began or ended. Anyway, so that's that. Nice to meet you, Dalek man. Definitely drop me a line or add me on Instagram or something and flick me a message and say, hey, that was me in your live stream on YouTube, and we'll get in touch, mate. Cool as. And yeah, if you need any bits printed while you're in the middle of upgrading your printer, let me know. I can help you out. Sweet. Alright, well, anyone else that's watching, sorry if I triggered anybody else's Google Home when they're rewatching this video later. And I'll be sure to fuck with people in the future with that one. That'll be fun. Alright, enjoy the rest of your night, everybody. I am going to cruise and do some stuff while that prints. Alright, have a good night. Sweet. Alright, got that message just at the end there. Alright, sure, I'll see you soon. So yeah, just in case my YouTube account doesn't have any links back to my Instagram, it's just 3D_printing_revolution. Same logo and stuff that you would have seen in me video backdrops and stuff all over my channel. Cool. All right. Too easy. I'm pretty sure it should be easy enough to find me. And obviously you know where I am, so that makes it easy.